Corporate Downfall. Chapter 4, Dead Channels. Elias knew the window was closing. He could see it in the way the systems behaved, not alarmed, not panicked, just focused. Audit cycles shortened. Latency checks tightened. Access pathways that had been ignored for decades suddenly returned null responses. Not locked. Watched. The corporations were learning. Not who he was. Not where. But that the anomaly was centered. Localized. Station-bound. Ceres was becoming loud. Elias ran simulations late into the station night, tracing probability cones forward. If the variance continued to originate from one location, the corporations would eventually isolate the physical infrastructure itself. Power throttles. Sector shutdowns. Forced resets. They would not look for Elias. They would erase the station until the problem disappeared. He needed noise. He needed distance. He needed time. But he couldn't use the network. All official communications flowed through corporate relays, filtered, parsed, and retained. Even casual messages were indexed for sentiment drift and behavioral anomalies. Encryption wasn't forbidden, it was pointless. The corporations didn't need to read messages. They just needed to know that messages existed. So Elias did something radical. He wrote. Paper was rare. Inefficient. Untraceable. Elias traded 3 months of redirected maintenance credits for a handful of thin polymer sheets salvaged from a decommissioned archive module. He wrote carefully, by hand, under dim utility lighting. Not slogans. Not ideology. Instructions. He explained reversion. Not the code could be corrupted, but the logic. Where the money hid. How corporations skimmed labor invisibly. How old systems trusted maintenance access implicitly. How to move credits so slowly and quietly that the loss vanished into corporate blind spots. At the end, he wrote a name. Jonah Reyes. Jonah had once worked dockside maintenance with Elias before transferring off-station. Smart. Quiet. Careful. The kind of person who fixed things because they needed fixing, not because someone told him to. Elias folded the letter and sealed it inside a vacuum sleeve. Then he paid a ship. Cargo haulers still used human crews. Automation failed in edge cases, radiation storms, microfracture repairs, improvised fixes. The corporations tolerated this inefficiency because replacing humans outright was more expensive than exploiting them. Elias slipped the packet to a maintenance tech servicing a long-haul freighter bound for Vesta Station. No scans, Elias said. The tech didn't ask why. He didn't need to. The credits were enough. The ship departed 3 hours later. Weeks passed. The corporations tightened their grip. Rations dropped first. Food protein blocks reduced by 10%. Water recycling delays introduced, temporarily. Air purity thresholds lowered to the minimum survivable standard. No announcements. Just adjustments. Then came the lockdown. Station residents were confined to their residences outside assigned work hours. Corridors went dark. Transit pods powered down. Doors unlocked only during approved shift windows. Official reasoning. Resource optimization. Unofficial effect. Isolation. Martin stopped sleeping. He sat in his small room, bed, kitchenette, bathroom, listening to the hum of life support that now sounded thinner, weaker. Elias stopped visiting. Movement was risky now. Too many eyes. Elias watched the systems instead. He felt the noose drawing tighter. Audit pings brushed closer to his access routes. Legacy pathways began returning inconsistent responses. The corporations hadn't found him, but they were compressing the space around him. The freighter should have arrived by now. Every day without response felt heavier. Then, quietly, it happened. A ripple in the financial flows. Not from Ceres. From Vesta Station. Elias froze as he watched the data unfold. Small amounts. Micro redirections. Labor schemes reversed and redistributed. The pattern was familiar, not identical, but unmistakable. Someone had understood the logic and adapted it. Then the transfers crossed stations. Credits flowed into Ceres. Into worker accounts. Into maintenance crews. Into people whose balances had never gone up before. The corporations detected it instantly. Variance multi-origin. Source, distributed. Correlation, non-local. Ceres was no longer the center. Elias leaned back in his chair, heart pounding, and laughed silently into the recycled air. They couldn't shut down everywhere. They couldn't erase everyone. The corporations had been built to dominate centralized systems. They had never learned how to fight trust. And somewhere across the dark, a letter was being folded again. Passed hand to hand. Station to station.